I used to think that I was just that guy who was a great fieldsman and a guy who could bat a bit, and didn't think I was actually good enough. So, like, good enough in my ability, good enough in my technique, good enough in my mindset. And I wish I had have learnt all this stuff when I was a teenager. I learned all this when I was in my early 20s. But I really believe this information needs to be shared to kids in schools and at least in cricket clubs. And that's going to be my kind of goal now, is to share this information with cricket players, because I really believe that once they understand how their mind works and why they do what they do or don't do what they should do, everything will kind of make sense. I mean, I used to hear about goal setting. I used to hear about visualization and things like that, but I never really understood how it actually works. I always thought that, well, it's important. Definitely it's important. But I don't think I ever really started goal setting at all until I was exposed to this information. So a little bit of a backstory as to how this all came about. I was in my early 20s and I was working in the State Bank of Victoria, and we went through a merger with the Commonwealth Bank. And as part of that, the State Bank of Victoria put us through this program about change, because we were about to embark on a really big change. And I was a training officer in the bank at that time, and they put me onto this course. And I'll never forget it. It was about a 3 or 4 day course, and it blew me away. Just the simplicity of how the information was conveyed and how it resonated, how it all just made sense. It was fantastic. So apart from the merger, I kind of thought to myself, look, I'm gonna put this material to work in my cricket. So I kind of was a little bit disillusioned with the bank at that time. So I put this towards my cricket. And how I started all of that was I had to identify my beliefs about my ability. And those beliefs were that I was an incredible fieldsman and a guy who could bat a bit. And my on-field performances would reflect that. I'd make, 15, 20 runs, 25, 30 runs, and then just go out on a silly shot. I knew I was better than that. However, that was my belief at that point in time, was, great fieldsman and a guy who could bat a bit, reinforced in me with teammates, coaches, parents, and friends, things like that. So this information, I thought, well, I'll test it. Let's see if this really works. Now, to change your beliefs, you have to rewire the mind. That's not easy to do. It's quite challenging. For some people, it can happen straight away. For others, with deep-seated beliefs, it's more of a challenge. So in order to do that, I wrote an affirmation. Now, affirmations are simply a statement of an outcome that you want that hasn't actually happened yet. So my first affirmation I wrote was, scoring 50 runs makes me feel important to the team and strives me on to be consistent. So, I couldn't see myself or believe I was capable of scoring 100 runs. But I thought, well, 30 runs, if I can get to 30, well, what's another extra 20? Surely I can get to 50. So the first affirmation I wrote, scoring 50 runs makes me feel important to the team and strives me on to be consistent. I wrote that on a little card, and I read it every morning and I read it every night. And any time in between that I had spare time, I would read that affirmation. And I'd visualize myself. I'd see myself playing the shots. I would feel that emotion that came with visualization. And I could feel the change in me, and that would come about even at training. I can actually picture it now, putting my gear down, getting padded up, our opening bowlers, warming up as they do, and as opening bowlers at training do, they bowl no balls. I don't know why they do that. They bowl no balls. Anyway, that's another story. Anyway, so I remember facing our opening bowlers, and I was feeling really confident, even to the point that one of the bowlers said, "Gee, Damien, you're looking really good." So this is pre-season. So continued with training, continued with reading my affirmation, and I only wrote one affirmation. I wanted to explore in other areas, but that was the one I was really concentrating on, was changing my belief that I could actually score. For that start was 50 runs. So first game of the year came up, and adding to that, our opening batsman had left, and I asked if I could open the batting. And I remember my captain his captain coach at that point, he looked at me as if to say, oh, he didn't believe I was up to it. I could see him thinking, Damien's a great fieldsman, but I don't know, opening batsman, gee. So gave me the opportunity. First game of the year, I scored 58 runs. I was stoked, over the moon. Couldn't believe it, actually. And from there, I continued with my affirmations. And a couple of games later, I scored another 50. And I thought to myself, well, this stuff's really working. Let's kind of, push this a bit more. So I wrote another affirmation, and it said, scoring 100 runs makes me feel important to the team and strives me on to be consistent. So I remember working on that affirmation, really seeing myself score 100 runs. And it was a Thursday night before the match, and I was sitting on the pool table. A good mate of mine, Simon, was sitting next to me. And I said to Simon, if we bat this week, I'm going to make 100. And he just laughed. Anyway, Saturday came, and my father came and watched the game. And he said to me, when he left, Mum said to him, oh, how long are you going to be? And he said, oh, well, if Damien's batting, not too long. He had the same belief I used to have. Anyway, we won the toss, we batted, and I batted with sheer confidence, determination, concentrated on every ball, and scored 100. 100 on the dot, and I went out 4 balls later. And I can still see myself going out at that point. I mean, my goal was 100. And as soon as I got to that goal, my whole energy, demeanor, attitude even changed. And I remember, flashing outside the off stump and getting caught behind. And that was the point. My goal was 100. So all my efforts were honed in on that. And once I achieved that, I just kind of gave up. And that's where you see a lot of cricketers, they get to 100 and they go out not long after, because that's their goal. So I was aware of that, changed my affirmation to read, once I score 100, I always go on and make more runs. And it was probably one of the last games of the year, and I scored 123. And at that point, I knew this information and these techniques really, truly work. So it was quite interesting, because not long after that season finished, I think I played one more season from memory, but I actually put in for a transfer and moved to Sydney. And unfortunately, I didn't play much cricket in Sydney. I concentrated on my career at that point. And that's where the information that I learnt, where I first put into my cricket, I then evolved into my work and career. And one of those things was public speaking, representing the bank at events and things like that. So I would use that information to visualize myself giving talks and presentations, and could see myself doing that. And this information about beliefs, goal setting, visualization certainly helped in that sense with me. It's been a game changer. I mean, I'm sitting here in Queensland, up on the Sunshine Coast, near Noosa, and I had a goal that I wrote down, and it was living in Queensland on the Sunshine Coast, Noosa, with 2 dogs. Now, that was a long time ago. I achieved that. I've had 4 dogs since then. And I remember sitting there once, and I'm sitting there on the balcony, and I'm working on the computer, and I'm looking around, and I'm looking, and I'm going, hang on, I'm in Queensland, there's 2 dogs. That's the thing. This information, it truly works. I don't doubt that at all. And it really should be shared in schools and definitely in cricket clubs. And that's going to be my goal now, is to actually use this information, share it with cricketers and people in general. But ideally, it'll be targeting, cricket players, because it changed me, and it can certainly change you as well. So if you're wanting more information, have a look at this video here, and that'll talk about more about beliefs. Bye for now.